Happy New Year. Welcome back to the FCC. My name is Tara Joseph. I'm a senior journalist with Reuters and president of the FCC. Delighted to have a full house and the media here today. So just a quick note, if you would please turn off the ringers on your phone as we're recording this session today. Now, on to our topic of the day, anxiety and confidence in Hong Kong. Let's go back to Hong Kong 2016. We had Oathgate. We had Youth Inspiration, a wobbly Hang Seng Index, CY Leung saying, no thanks, not another round, and we also had a nice, warm and sunny Christmas here. So, what do we look forward to in 2017? Could it be Museum Gate, the way things are starting? Will it be Chief Executive Lam or Chief Executive Tong? We have the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover to China to look forward to, and also talk of a new tech zone here. Well, here to provide his observation, I'm very pleased to welcome U.S. Consul General Kurt Tong, who took up his post here last year. He is the Consul General for Hong Kong and Macau. He's been traveling the past 2 years before coming here. Previously, he was the most senior diplomat handling economic affairs for the State Department, and he also has a very long track record of working in Asia, including stints in Tokyo. It's a pleasure to introduce him. As always, we'll hear from Kurt Tong and have plenty of time for Q&A. Consul General.
Well, thank you, Tara, and good afternoon, everybody. It's really an enormous pleasure to be here at the Foreign Correspondents Club. It's a very cool setting. I bet every speaker that comes here says that, but it's interesting for me, and I imagine constantly interesting for you to think about the fact that this gathering is taking place in one of the most storied press clubs in the world, a place with a rich tradition as a meeting place and a place for exchange of ideas, but also, as I was reminded earlier, as a world-class watering hole. And I'm told that the gin and tonics are not only delicious, but also inexpensive and frequent. So that's all a good thing when you're conducting the business of journalism. Your mission, more seriously, I think, is to promote the freedom of the press, to produce credible, high-standard journalism. And I think it's fair to say that in today's world, that mission has never been more important. And so not only do I want to personally salute you for what you do every day to provide facts and ideas to the people of the world, but also to encourage you to continue to do so with great courage and with great vigor going forward. And I think it takes a bit of imagination to think back to Hong Kong when this club was founded. I understand that it was actually founded in Chongqing, but moved here. But when we think back to that period of turmoil in the middle of the 21st century, and then think about the full tapestry of what has taken place in Hong Kong up until today, it's really a very, very striking story. Today's Hong Kong, as you all know, is an international financial center par excellence, and China is a re-emergent global power of surpassing wealth and military strength. And I doubt that anyone would have foreseen all of that taking place when they were gathered in this group 7 decades ago. So thinking with that context of that history in mind, I think that informs the topic of my discussion today, which is, as Tara outlined, anxiety and confidence in Hong Kong. Anxiety and confidence in Hong Kong. I think it's an interesting topic. So we'll see what this says here. I'll try not to be the classic diplomat, of course, who thinks twice before he says nothing. When I arrived here as a consul general roughly 5 months ago, I was new to Hong Kong. Like all Asia hands, I had visited the city frequently before, but never really lived here or worked here for any extended period of time. So during my time, of course, when I arrived, I tried very hard to meet and listen to and learn from just as many Hong Kong people as I possibly could. Fortunately, Hong Kong is a very friendly place, and I have found that people here are extraordinarily ready to tell you what they think about the issues of our time. When I gathered with the American Chamber of Commerce back in September, and by the way, I think you all know that Tara is taking over the reins of the American Chamber of Commerce quite soon, which we're quite excited about in the U.S. consulate. This is not like the fix is in here, but certainly, you know, I have a stake in that, and I'm pretty excited about it. But the assumptions that I outlined at the American Chamber back in September were threefold. First, that Hong Kong is and continues to be a success story. Second, that the one country, two systems framework and the autonomy that goes with it are fundamental elements of Hong Kong's success. And third, that the United States has an important role to play as a partner in Hong Kong's continued success. Now, my staff at the U.S. consulate, over here, the groaning people at the table on the right, they often despair that I tend to think a little bit too much like an economist, and I like to make assumptions, like the three that I outlined, and hypotheses. And I assume that you, of course, heard the old story about the fellow who falls into a ditch with an economist, and he says, "Oh my God, how are we going to get out of here?" And the economist says with great confidence, "No problem. Let's first just assume a ladder." But actually, I'm happy to report that in this case, the assumptions that I made back in September about Hong Kong have proven correct. In my time here, I've spoken with lots and lots of people: taxi drivers, tycoons, teachers, tailors, students, solicitors, civil servants. And I've had a chance to hike all over the beautiful hills of Hong Kong, eat lots and lots of dim sum, as you can tell, and zip around in one of the world's best public transit systems, certainly a much better one than the one that we have in Washington. But through all of that, I found, in fact, that yes, Hong Kong is a success story. One country, two systems enables that success, and the United States is an important partner in all of that. So, are we done? No, wait. You guys paid for this lunch, so I should probably say just a little bit more about all of this. First, the successes of Hong Kong. And you all know the litany of statistics that document Hong Kong's achievements. With a $300 billion economy and only 7 million people, give or take, Hong Kong is an economic marvel by any conventional measure. And of course, it only takes a few conversations to realize that Hong Kong's greatest asset is its people. Hong Kongers are some of the smartest and most worldly people that I have met anywhere. Young and old alike, they are highly skilled and motivated, and collectively comprise a deep pool of talented professionals and skilled labor that naturally attracts international business and investment. And I've been deeply impressed with the creativity and entrepreneurial spirit that I have witnessed here in Hong Kong. Just the other day, I found myself, we went to visit a tea house in Foton. This was not your ordinary tea house. First, we got into an elevator that looked like it was kind of out of the scene from The Matrix, riding up the stairs, and then there's a bunch of steel-grated doors, and it's an industrial building, very industrial place. And you go through the door, and you're greeted by Catherine Young, and she says, "Welcome to my tea house." And inside, there was this incredibly charming tea house. And not only was more impressive than just her reimagining of this industrial space, was her vision for the tea itself. You know, her family's been in the tea business for years, but she's taken those ideas and those traditions and adapted them to create a young and vibrant vibe that's very suited to today's Hong Kong. It's completely Chinese, but it's fully modern. Another set of entrepreneurs I met recently, they reminded me of another key characteristic of Hong Kong, which is its openness to international participation. A fellow named David Hansen is working with a team of American and Chinese robot makers at the Hong Kong Science Park, doing incredibly cutting-edge work, making robots that actually hold a conversation with you. They use facial expressions as human as, or maybe more human than me, but as human as many of the rest of us on a good day. Now, putting aside how scary that is, and I don't know how many of you have seen Ex Machina and realized what happened to the really smart guy at the end of that movie, but what they're doing is really cool. And they're doing it in Hong Kong, and he's an American. They're doing it in Hong Kong, not California, here. And the reason they're doing it here is because it's a great place to live. It has good technologists. It's located close to manufacturers in Shenzhen who can turn around small motors on a couple days' notice. And importantly, Hong Kong actually protects intellectual property. So these people and these ideas that they're pursuing are very, very impressive. But I think that we recognize that for even the most energetic and hardworking people to succeed, especially in the highly competitive world of the 21st century, they need to exist in a place that supports their aspirations. And that brings me to this question of one country, two systems. Hong Kong's commitment to the rule of law, to transparency and openness create the basis for business and trade to succeed. And its dedication, as you know, to freedom of expression helps foster the creativity that is key to success in a post-industrial society in particular. Under the one country, two systems construct, as set forth in the Basic Law, Hong Kong's courts are independent, and the Special Administrative Region has a unique representational political system that operates with a high degree of autonomy. These advantages have enabled Hong Kong to become an international financial center with top-notch regulatory standards. Hong Kong is regularly ranked among the freest economies in the world, noted for its ease of doing business and superior logistical capabilities. Not to mention Hong Kong's commitment to clean air and clean water and other environmental considerations. It is these traits, in fact, that also make the United States a natural partner for Hong Kong. It helps that we have many shared values between our societies. These values include an abiding respect for fundamental freedoms, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, and freedom of assembly. But at the same time, of course, as a part of China, Hong Kong benefits from a rich cultural heritage and from its unique historical experiences and capabilities, acting as a gateway between China and the United States, or between China and the rest of the world. Hong Kong has always been especially good for China in this sense. For many years, Hong Kong was the primary conduit for investment flows into the mainland. Now it serves as a premier platform for assisting mainland firms in investing abroad. It is also a vanguard in the ongoing efforts at internationalization of the renminbi. So, after all that, you may be asking, why did Tong include the word anxiety in the title of this speech today? Despite Hong Kong's many strengths, I would be remiss if I also did not report that I have detected a palpable and persistent note of anxiety expressed by Hong Kongers in many of my discussions here over the past half year. Some of this anxiety, I think, can be ascribed to the relentless self-critique that comes naturally to people in a fast-paced global city. Hong Kongers are concerned about maintaining a comparative advantage in finance, in trade, and in innovation in a fiercely competitive global market. Hong Kongers also express anxiety about issues that are not at all dissimilar to the concerns that we face back in the United States. For example, income inequality statistics for Hong Kong show one of the widest divides in the developed world. There are structural issues in the economy here that must be addressed going forward, which are even more noticeable given recent slower growth trends around the world, such as how much can Hong Kong continue to rely upon tourism or real estate development or its ports to drive growth in the years ahead. And certainly everyone is aware of the housing crunch here and the high numbers of people living in or queued up for government housing assistance. And I also believe that some of Hong Kong's anxiety can also be attributed to a certain awareness of its limitations. Hong Kong has a high degree of autonomy within China, but by design, that autonomy does not come that autonomy does come with some limitations, such as in the conduct of foreign policy and national defense. Hong Kong has an unrealized potential as a regional leader in science and technology or medicine or education, but unrealized potential is another way of saying that it has not developed in these areas fast enough to maintain a clear lead vis-a-vis other growth centers in the region or worldwide. And Hong Kong is in some ways beholden to the vicissitudes of the larger economies upon which it depends. For example, Hong Kong can do little to affect the mainland's capital controls or US interest rate changes, even though these policy decisions can directly impact its economy. And then there is the broader dynamic of US-China relations or China's external relations overall, which can either help or harm Hong Kong, depending upon how things play out. Now, amid these economic realities, I've also heard from many people here about politics and their concerns that polarization in the Legislative Council will make it more difficult for the government or for the council itself to identify and outlay funding for solutions to some of the key problems facing the city. Also, over the past year or so, the unwarranted disappearance of the booksellers, as well as the unfortunate preemptive interpretation of the Basic Law by the National People's Congress with respect to official oath-taking, have contributed to a sense among many in Hong Kong that Beijing may be losing sight of the importance of respecting Hong Kong's autonomy. And these incidents have tended to feed Hong Kongers endless and I believe unhealthy speculation about what Beijing wants or does not want. Now, obviously, the central government's opinions matter, but I remain hopeful that the central government really does understand that the two systems part of the one country, two systems framework is critical to Hong Kong's success, as well as to Hong Kong's enduring value to the rest of China. In fact, I have had very useful conversations with PRC officials in both Beijing and Hong Kong that do reflect an understanding of the importance of maintaining the health of the proverbial goose that lays the golden eggs. If anything, in fact, I think it's clear that recent trends in global affairs have made Hong Kong even more valuable to the rest of China. So if I were to be granted one New Year's wish, it would be that Hong Kongers would spend a little bit less time worrying about what Beijing thinks and just go ahead and tackle the various issues of the day with the can-do spirit that Hong Kong is known for and respected for worldwide. So, anxiety. Here we are, anxious about anxiety in Hong Kong. There are many causes for that anxiety. Some of them are justified, some of them may be exaggerated. But the risk, as you can see, is that anxiety breeds anxiety. And that can become a vicious cycle. But let me talk about confidence. The opposite is also true. Confidence breeds confidence. Confidence can create and reinforce a virtuous cycle. Without minimizing any of the concerns I just laid out, let me just tell you clearly, based upon my time here, I am extraordinarily confident about Hong Kong's future. Now, I represent the American people and American interests in Hong Kong, and our mission here is to partner and not to preach. But in the spirit of partnership, please allow me to offer my view on why we can approach the coming months and years with real confidence about Hong Kong. First and foremost, one country, two systems still presents Hong Kong with incredible opportunities for creative and innovative and sustainable growth. There are natural tensions inherent in the design of one country, two systems. But Hong Kong has found a way to make it work for the benefit of its people for 20 years. And I will say it again, a successful, prosperous Hong Kong is good for China and good for all of China's partners. China can play its part by respecting the high degree of autonomy laid out in the Basic Law. But the key for Hong Kong itself, I believe, is this. The one country, two systems formula works best when applied actively, imaginatively, affirmatively, in a word, confidently. So what do I mean by this? Let me just share another thought. And I share the fault of many Americans that I never miss the chance to use a sports analogy. Now, I was thinking of baseball, but I'll spare you baseball because many of you may not be from North America, and it's complicated anyways. So I think everyone in the room has had a chance to watch a soccer match or two. It's called soccer, not football. We, by the way, our consulate has actually we call it the football club, so I'm contradicting myself, but we have a pretty good soccer team, and we were victorious this past weekend. I know you wanted to know that. But at any rate, I assume that you know what I mean when I say that, when I talk about offense and defense on the football pitch. There are attacking styles like Brazil's and famous counterattacks like Italy's, but what they share in common is that at some point, the team that wins goes on offense. You cannot play an entire match on defense and win the game. You have to work the ball up the field and eventually find the back of the net. I think you get the point. But to finish the analogy then, how can Hong Kong best play offense? Over these past 5 months, I've heard, in fact, myriad ideas about ways in which Hong Kong can do just that, can move the ball up the field within the constructs of the Basic Law and the one country, two systems framework and Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy. Simply put, through one country, two systems, Hong Kong has the opportunity to achieve nearly any goal that it sets for itself. Hong Kongers know that they benefit from the free flow of information and freedom of exchange with other countries in ways that are beyond the reach of many people in the mainland. Embracing and celebrating these core advantages and reaffirming them whenever possible will help Hong Kong maintain its specialness, the secret sauce that fuels its vibrant culture and its dynamic economy. Now here's some of the ideas that I've heard from Hong Kongers themselves. Hong Kong can grab the opportunity to make itself a finance and design center for the Belt and Road Initiative. Hong Kong can expand its regional and global competitiveness through free trade agreements or bilateral investment treaties with regional partners on both sides of the Pacific. It might even seek to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership if that most excellent of initiatives is constituted in some form going forward. Hong Kong can work through APEC or with other partners to ensure that it is a regional leader in areas such as cross-border data privacy issues, which is another way of saying it can keep information flowing freely and securely over the internet. Hong Kong could even volunteer to host APEC to help steer regional priorities. Hong Kong can make itself into a regional and global leader in arbitration, in education, or in medicine. And given the creativity and drive I've seen everywhere here, Hong Kong can make and shape itself into a technology and design hub, whether for financial technology or any other not yet seen value proposition. I think the list goes on and on. But just imagine the confidence that will flow from the vigorous pursuit and eventual realization of these goals. Work in these areas will reinforce the confidence that is already born out of Hong Kong's continued prosperity. From a United States perspective, of course, there are opportunities to partner on each of these potential initiatives. For example, we are willing to share our experience on cutting-edge trade agreements. Likewise, U.S. firms have expressed keen interest in working with and through Hong Kong to access Belt and Road projects. We look forward in the United States to working with the Hong Kong private sector and with its government in any or all of these areas. And I hope that the next chief executive will see the United States as a key partner. And I hope that he or she will be an early and frequent visitor to the United States, as well as to other global centers of commerce and creativity. So in conclusion then, look, we all know that we live in an era of disruptive technological change, which is reshaping business and labor and livelihoods all over the world. Governments and cities everywhere are grappling with how to navigate these changes. And I think that is why 2017 is shaping up to be a consequential year for the United States, for Hong Kong, and for China. In less than a fortnight, the United States will have a new president. Just 2 months after that, the election committee here will select a new chief executive. This July will mark 20 years since the establishment of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. In late fall, the Communist Party of China will cement its leadership structure for the next 5 years through the 19th Party Congress. Transitions like these naturally produce anxiety. They introduce uncertainty into an already uncertain world. But the one country, two systems construct provides Hong Kong the flexibility to navigate these disruptions and face these challenges and continue to create a bright future going forward. Let's remember this as we think about this in this historic building. Hong Kong, like the United States, has a remarkable capacity for reinvention and for change. Hong Kongers have always seized these opportunities and overcome associated challenges. These are challenges that are brought to them as a result of geography or culture or political developments. And Hong Kong, doing that, has transformed itself from a fishing village to a trading post to a light manufacturing center to a logistics hub to a global financial center. Every time conditions shift, Hong Kongers adapt proactively and find creative solutions to move forward and prosper. So I think that we have every reason to be confident that this very special city will be able to adapt to craft the next chapter toward inclusive growth and prosperity. And the United States, I'm here to remind you, is here and accounted for and willing to support and participate in these developments as an enthusiastic partner. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to our conversation.
In this time of transition, as you mentioned, and the fact that there are some similarities with the US and the challenges that we face here in Hong Kong, could you reassure us about the transition that we're about to see in the United States? And also tell, in terms of the new administration, as you mentioned, and also tell us whether you've had any indication from the new administration what their vision is of Hong Kong and what your task will be under the new administration or your priorities. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And to be honest, that's not a surprising question. But my response really is that it's still early days. I think a good way to think about this is that transitions require time. And transitions from one administration to the next are no different. The fact of the matter is that U.S. policy toward Hong Kong, towards Asia writ large, has been, and will be informed by our national interests. So the best way to predict, and I can't predict because the new administration has not taken charge yet, positions aren't filled yet, key people have not yet taken office, and a lot of the conversations that construct the detailed framework for what the new administration will actually aim to achieve using the existing structures have not yet been outlined. But the best way to approach it is to think about what are the national interests of the United States, and what is it likely to want to achieve, and then look a bit at what the incoming people are saying as they're getting ready to take positions. So I think it's clear that the United States has an abiding interest in the stability and prosperity of the Asia Pacific. 60% of our trade is with other APEC nations. The Asia Pacific region is the fastest growing economically in the world. It's also the location of a number of major unresolved issues. And so it's fair to say that the new administration, like the previous one, will take a lot of interest. What are some of the concerns of the United States then? So answer number one, the U.S. will probably do a lot. What the terminology that's used to refer to it, whether it's pivot or rebalance or something else, regardless, I think the United States will be very active and very forward-leaning towards the Asia Pacific. So then what are the issues which the U.S. sees in the region? And we're concerned about stability. We're concerned about continued growth and prosperity as it impacts the United States through trade and investment, finance flows, technology flows. And you've heard a lot from the incoming President-elect about his concerns about the U.S.-China economic relationship in particular. So I think it's fair to anticipate that there will be a lot of attention given to that. But beyond that, I actually don't have a lot to offer you. So you asked for reassurance. I think the reassurance comes from the fact that the same set of people, American citizens, will be doing, based upon the same set of interests, will have essentially the same toolbox to work with in thinking about how to approach issues, and may vary it up a little bit in terms of the actual steps going forward. But the overall, I would tend to expect more consistency than inconsistency in our approaches to the region. And that includes Hong Kong. Yes. Sorry, you're doing this. I apologize.
Please go ahead.
Hi, Tiffany App from Women's Wear Daily. I actually wanted to ask you, Kurt, about the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, because last month we saw a very surprising call between Trump and Tsai Ing-wen. And then also we had, just on Sunday, Ted Cruz meeting with the Taiwanese president. So do you foresee a kind of rocky relationship going forward, or seeing that as a point of contention?
I have the good fortune of being the U.S. Consul General to Hong Kong, and so I don't really have any special insights on the whole questions related to the U.S. relationship with Taiwan. So I'm going to probably pretty much duck your question, other than to just think about the fact that the Taiwan Relations Act is still in force. The United States has abiding interests in its relationship with China, but also great concerns about the future safety and prosperity of the people in Taiwan, and then we'll take it from there.
Question on the veranda.
Hi, yes, another Bloomberg question, actually. You did mention TPP and the fact that maybe Hong Kong could participate in that. The assumption being that the US might not participate in that. So can I ask you what form you see, could TPP actually go ahead? Could it go ahead without US participation?
I've spent a lot of time on TPP over the last, actually more, I'm trying to count the number of years, and it's well above 7 and probably approaches 10 as a concept and as an initiative. And it is TPP writ large, the entire question of using binding frameworks to improve the rules for trade and investment in the Asia Pacific. And I personally continue to believe that TPP is an extraordinarily valuable framework, that the text negotiated has very high quality language, agreed to by a number of important economies, addressing many of the most important issues on trade and investment in the region in ways that continue to be relevant. What exactly is going to happen? I'm not sure. I really don't know. The last 2 years before coming to Hong Kong, I spent a healthy proportion of my time together with other colleagues in the U.S. government trying to sell the TPP to the people of the United States. And at the end of the day, we came up short. The anxiety, and I talked about anxiety and confidence, the anxiety that people are feeling in the United States about their economic condition overwhelmed the logic of the agreement and the demonstrated advantages of actually participating in the agreement in the popular discussion about trade policy in the United States. So I don't know what the U.S. is going to do. I do firmly believe that the pieces, the content of TPP is extraordinarily valuable and should not be discarded easily by the United States or anyone else in the region. And that even China, I think, sees the value of many of the pieces of content in the TPP. And so my hope is that somehow, despite the political headwinds that we face in the United States and some of the other countries of the region, similar to what is many in the European Union are experiencing, my hope is that some of this content can be harvested and packaged and made into realized policy change in the economies of the region, because that will improve the trade and investment rules in the region, lead to greater prosperity, more transparency, and better outcomes for economic growth, as well as inclusive growth, as well as sustainable growth. And so that's my hope.
Can I just follow up on that question? As a Reuters journalist, in TPP you mentioned pieces and content. Are there any particular pieces and content that you think can be salvaged and could be pushed in the next administration, maybe with a different brand name, so to speak?
Oh my gosh, how many hours do we have? If you take, one of the ways of doing it is to think about a traditional trade agreement which only addresses, the traditional free, quote-unquote free trade agreement talks about tariffs, maybe a little bit about services liberalization, and we'll have an investment list, a liberalization list for sectors of investment. TPP's content goes well beyond that on things like data provisions, the role of state-owned enterprises, environmental issues, labor issues, competition policy, the whole question of licensing and the like. I mean, there's just a raft of detailed provisions, transparency rules, highly important. Just let me use that as an example. Within the TPP agreement, unlike in a traditional FTA, the partners would bind themselves to a notice and comment procedures and mutual comment across borders about emerging regulatory rules. Imagine how useful it is to have rules be informed by international dialogue before they're made, rather than having them, people trying to fix them after they're already put into place. Anyways, there's a ton of stuff in TPP, frankly, most of which emerged from the conversations in APEC, from the 21 member economies of APEC over the last decades, and so pulling that together in some fashion and realizing it is, I think, really, really important.
Time for a few more questions. Venus.
Hi, I'm Venus from Reuters. You called Beijing's interpretation of the Basic Law last year unfortunate and preemptive. What consequences have you observed from Beijing's interpretation, and do you think Hong Kong still enjoys the same level or degree of rule of law after the interpretation? Thanks.
I think that Hong Kong's courts, before that interpretation, after that interpretation, today and going forward, are highly independent. That's very valuable, extraordinarily valuable to Hong Kong's general autonomy, the preservation of its freewheeling way of life, but also it provides lifeblood to the economic system by providing the reassurance that economic activity as well as private activity will happen according to rule of law, as you know. So why did we say it was unfortunate? Well, because at the end of the day, I think that the U.S. government agrees with the body of solicitors and legal leaders in Hong Kong who found that this interpretation was unnecessary. And perceptions are important. So the perception that was created by the interpretation was that Hong Kong couldn't handle this oath-taking question by itself. Our perception was that it could. And I understand the anxiety in Beijing that led to the decision to do an interpretation, but at the end of the day, we think it's unfortunate because of that perceptions question.
Time for one more question.
Hi there, Laura from AFP. Part of the reason behind anxiety in Hong Kong politically is because of the stalling of the political reform process, and that's led to the emergence of an independence movement, talk of self-determination that you didn't really hear 2 years ago. How important do you think it is that Hong Kong restarts a proper conversation about political reform, which, you know, under the basic law is supposed to work towards democratizing its institutions more? And how can that be restarted when there's such polarization between the two sides at the moment?
So a lot of what you're asking would, a response would require me to get too far into the weeds of process within Hong Kong. But let me just say that from the U.S. perspective, universal suffrage, as has been under consideration in the past, would be a good thing. How that happens is up to the people of Hong Kong to figure out. But the main point, I believe, is that the people of Hong Kong do have an inclusive and democratic process. They have one now. I think it can be made better, but that they continue to talk with one another going forward, using the basic law and one country, two systems as the fundamental framework to continue to find ways to preserve autonomy and build a successful society.
I'd like to thank Consul General Tong for coming this January.
It's a real pleasure.
And a small gift from the club.
Oh boy.
No prizes for guessing what it is. And please come visit us more often. Thank you.